So welcome back to my second video to do with the suspension training class. So just to remind you, this class is on Saturday mornings at 8:30 at Broadmeadow Sports Centre. And as promised, I'm going to show you a couple of exercises, a couple of movements, and then after that, I'm going to show you a little bit of the research that I've been doing with a few of the participants that come to the class, where we did a bit of postural analysis before and after just one class. And hopefully you can see some of the impact that these movements can have on your posture. So I'm going to take the straps and I'm going to stand in such a way that I can hold the handles in this position here. So I'm just holding the handles so that they are high enough that they're not rubbing on my arms or my shoulders. And I'm then going to walk myself towards the wall. So I'm now leaning forwards with a nice straight body. So the idea is just by having this lean into the straps, I've got my core engaging and we're trying to avoid just sinking the hips, and we're trying to avoid the hips being too high. So we're maintaining ideally good postural alignment. And so from this position, I'm going to do a kind of a press up or a chest press type movement. So I'm going to lower myself down and then push back up again. And if you want to make this easier, you just walk yourself forward. So if I come forwards a little bit, it becomes easier. And if I want to make it even easier, I come even further forwards. And you can essentially, because you're using your body weight, you can make the exercise as easy as you want. So if you get to the point where you're here, you can see that my exercising becomes quite gentle. And so that is one of the advantages of this class, is that it's only as difficult as you feel that you want to make it. So some other movements we can do from this position would be kind of a pullover. So I'm coming up and then returning. And you don't necessarily want your arms to come all the way up alongside your ears. So one of the things that you learn from this movement is something called shoulder dissociation. And if you're interested in knowing what that is, it's essentially the idea that if you bring your arm up, there's a point in some people, if you've got a limited flexibility, in which you might then start to arch your lower back. And that means that you don't have good dissociation between your shoulder movement and your spine. So when you're doing that particular movement, we teach that you only want to go into the movement as far as you can, but without your spine changing its shape or its position. And so these are some of the just little nuances that we pay attention to when we're looking at reprogramming the body. So that was two movements. One was a pullover, one was a kind of a chest press. And if you can get the understanding that you can make these movements as easy or as difficult as you want, you're using your body, so it's not loading weights onto anything. And you'll also find that even when we were working with these upper body movements, we were still having to stabilize through the spine, utilizing our core stability and even pelvic stabilizing as well. So this is why every single movement that we do with the TRX involves more or less the whole body. And this is why they are very functional and they have a very good carryover into daily activities. So if you want to reduce your risk of injury and actually do movements which will actually benefit you, then come along to the class, give it a try. So what I've got here is the first of a couple of photos and a bit of postural analysis. And what we can look at is the analysis that's been done by the software. And you can see that the total deviations in their posture has reduced from 15.09 to 13.17, and you can start to see where those improvements have been made. So you can see, for example, the head has gone from 2.85 centimeters forward and reduced to 2.6 centimeters forwards. You can see that here with the pelvis and the hips, they've gone from 1.51 centimeters backwards to 1.01. So again, a reduction. And again, here in the knees, so 6.39 to 4.74. So what we're seeing is improvements in posture in comparing before and after. Here we have the same person looking at the front view. And we're able to look at, particularly they've got massive improvements in the rotations of their bodies. And what you can see is the deviations overall have gone from 10 degrees down to 4.1. Having said that, looking at other deviations in this aspect, it actually has gone slightly upwards. And that's not uncommon, actually, that particularly when you start to unravel things which are going on in rotations, you see little worsenings in other planes of motion. And I would say that when you look at, for example, the head here, there was a 6.3 degree rotation to the right, and that's reduced down to 2.9. The shoulders are the same at 1.2 degrees. Nothing was going wrong at the level of the rib cage in either of them. But then you can see in the hips, there is a 2.5 degree rotation in the hips, and that's reduced to 0. And those are remarkable changes to see in someone having just done one class of suspension training. And although this is a slight worsening in the shift or the translation, so what we're looking at is basically movements left to right rather than rotation. You can see that some of these have improved, some of them have got slightly worse, but the overall change is slightly to the worse, but it's not very large. But when you compare the improvements in rotation, it's a little bit of a trade-off, but it's an overall improvement. So here we have another side view of another participant that comes to the class, and you can see that the total deviations have reduced from 13.78 centimeters to 8.46. And you can start to see where those improvements are coming from. So you can see improvements in the head, huge improvement in the shoulder position, going from 3.3 centimeters to 1.1. And again, there's quite a big improvement in actually all of them. All of the parameters from the head, the shoulders, the hips, the pelvis and the knees have all improved to some degree. And it's just another example to illustrate to you that this kind of exercise has got the capacity to really make a difference.